Audit and Finance Committee.
Oh. You all set, Carlos? Yeah. All right, we're live.
Okay. I was going to call on Steve Scher, but I'm going to start with Linda.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We're going to start off with the Statement of Revenues and Expenditures. After 11 months, ending February 28th, 2023, we now have an $8 million operating gain. Overall, our operating revenues are 1% under budget and are 4.5% under prior year. Our ridership is currently trending about 10% higher than the same period in prior year. However, the fare box revenue is lower than budget due to the fare restructure we recently had, and the pass sale revenue is also trending below budget and prior year due to the pass exchanges for the fare structure as well. Special line revenues are 3% over budget, and because of the increase in service requests from our contracted service customers and advertising and other revenue is currently 10% over budget, and that's primarily due to the additional FlixBus and Trailway leases and favorably performing RTC parking revenues. Additionally, our current year operating revenues continue to underperform pre-pandemic operating revenues by 28%. Expenses, overall expenses are $7.7 million or 10% under budget and 6% over prior year. Most of the expense lines are trending under budget, with the most significant variances in the same lines we've been discussing all year. The healthcare salaries and wages under budget due to the open positions, and healthcare benefits are trending under budget as well. Workers' comp and pension is currently over budget due to the additional contribution that we made or the board approved last month.
Can you just remind the board the additional contribution we made to the pension?
Sure. We made an additional $1.7 million contribution, so 900 to non-salaried and 800 to salaried.
So our guests that are here that are collecting your pensions, congratulations. We're taking care of you.
The purchase transportation continues to be over budget as well due to the amount of service that they are providing. Currently, that is at about 69%, 72% of the service requested. Materials and supplies are trending under budget, mainly due to the write-off of the obsolete inventory. And services are trending under budget due to a combination of unrealized services for facilities, marketing, and information systems. The non-operating revenue is 1% under budget, consistent of 4% over prior year. The federal assistance needed is on budget and 10% over prior year. Our MRT is trending 9% over budget. It's currently 15% under prior year. There has been a slowdown in the real estate market.
So let's just throw those numbers out, because I know there's somebody interested in the room.
I will.
The graph.
On the next slide, I just wanted to point out the graphs. These are comparisons to our pre-pandemic year, fiscal year 20. As you can see, operating revenues have not returned to pre-pandemic levels. They're still at 28% or $4.4 million under. Operating expenses continue to increase from pandemic year. And then the non-operating revenue has continued to increase year over year to help offset the revenue losses that we've experienced due to the pandemic and the loss of ridership. Our MRT, I'm sure you recognize this statement, Mr. Scher. We are currently at 8.6 million for the year with only 1 month to go.
If we showed you prior, last year and the year before, Steve, you would have had heart palpitations because you wouldn't have believed it.
Last year was our record year at 11.1 million.
There was 2 years worth before.
Next is the statement of cash flows. This is as of February 28th. This was a month in which we received our STOA of $10.9 million. General fund is at $16.2 million, and all reserves are intact. The health insurance reserve, capital reserve, paratransit reserve. Some of them have been invested into treasury bills, which are on the next statement. This is our inventory of existing investments. I did, in this past month, invest the paratransit reserve in treasury bills as well. You'll see that on the next statement. And that's it for the finance report for February. Is there any questions on any of this?
Once again, a nice, healthy finance report. Well done by the team, Melissa and Linda. As usual, I go through these numbers with them prior to the board meeting, about a week before. We're in solid fiscal footing, and also thinking about the future and planning for the future. So, job well done this month. With that being said, I need a motion to move this for the full board for approval. Tina, second. First, second, Darlene. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, Linda.
Okay, we're getting there. Next up, we are going to, in December, we came to you with a proposed budget. Now we're coming to you with a final budget for the fiscal year. This is basically going to show the changes from proposed to the final budget. And with that, that's all set, right?
Yep.
I'm going to turn this over to Melissa. She's going to present the operating budget.
So in our final budget, we take the similar approach as our preliminary budget. We collaborate with staff, we evaluate expense trends, any changes in costs, economic impacts, and contractual agreements. We evaluate operating and non-operating revenue along with all the expenses and capital needs. So in those evaluations, we're optimistic with the future growth of revenue, the continued return of ridership, and then we're really optimistic on what we've been doing with our hiring campaigns, and then also retaining those staff members. And we also take into account some challenges. We have seen the declining in MRT revenues, staffing challenges, although we are optimistic and we've seen some great strides in hiring some employees, we still have a long way to go. And then the continued rising inflation costs, rising costs for commodities and services. So this is showing our proposed budget in the first column, and then the second column our final budget, and then the change of that. This is just a summarized version of that. So overall the revenues have increased 3.7 million, and then expenses 2.8 million. So to go into a little further detail, operating revenues, you'll see that special line revenue, there was a slight decrease there, and that's based on contractual agreements, and then advertising and other those lease agreements that Tara brought to the board a couple weeks ago. We have a couple new lease agreements. Non-operating revenue, the biggest change here is in the STOA. We anticipate a 7% increase in the STOA, and then that is offset. You'll see the decrease in federal assistance. The total of $3 million is to support the increases in expenses on the next page.
Melissa, can I just for a second?
Yeah.
So the 7% increase illustrated there, NIPTA has been very active in lobbying the governor's office, the assembly, the Senate. Our ask has been 20% straight across the board increase. We have met with the governor's office, the governor's budget office, the Senate Ways and Means, the assembly. We've reached out to all of our local delegation. Each CEO across the state has met with their local representatives. And then what happens is the governor comes out with her budget, and then the assembly and Senate put out what's called their one house budgets. The Senate has asked for a 20% increase in STOA, has offered some funding recommendations there, and the Assembly has asked for a 26.5% increase in STOA. I'm happy to report that that 7% is the starting point. And for those of you that have been with us for a while, you know that the starting point is usually 0. We're always told to budget flat, and then you're looking at a 1 or 2% increase. So here we're starting with a 7% increase, and that is likely to grow. We will hopefully know that by the end of the month. The deadline for the budgets to be approved is by March 31st, so the beginning of the fiscal year. So I will provide you information as we get it. But it's just great news for us. It's great that we have local representatives, and that we have a governor's office, and even statewide representatives that really understand the importance of public transportation. So thanks, Melissa.
So now we're going to move on to the expenses. I'll go over the most notable ones. Salaries and wages increased $872,000. That reflects any union increases, all positions being fully staffed and operational for the entirety of the fiscal year. Increases based on need for on-demand services that will be rolling out in the next year. Also increases in Oswego County for call bus services. It takes into account any anticipated retirements and new hires in regards to that, and an annual COLA increase. Other employee benefits, it is right along, that's like your FICA tax and stuff, so that coincides with any increases that you're going to see in salaries and wages. A slight increase in health, and that's just based on trend, and same with workers' comp. The pension increased $1.3 million, and that is based on what I brought last month in regards to the actuarial assumptions. And then materials and supplies and services, that's primarily based on trend and inflation costs, just what we've seen over the last 6 months. And then the fueling, same pricing. We're not able to lock in our fuel costs like we have in the past. And utilities and supplies and other expenses, that is also based on trend. So overall, our expenses are going up 2.8%. But over, I don't know, you'll probably talk about balanced budget.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to turn over to Linda, and she's going to talk about the 3-year projections.
So, as you can see, we have the 2023-24 budget fully fully balanced, and we were able to continue that on through the next fiscal year, 24-25. But in 25, that is when we're projecting that most of our federal funding, specifically the ARP funding, will be fully expended. And with that being gone, we are back to using our reserves to offset budget deficits. And, oh yep, it did. So the multi-year budget projections assume the same year-over-year increase as we were presented in the proposed budget. Regular line assumes a 5% increase year-over-year. Special line and advertising revenues assume a 2% increase year-over-year. Salaries and wages and other employee benefits assumes a 4% increase annually. Healthcare benefits, an increase of 7%. Workers' comp assumes a 5% increase annually. Pension benefits assume a 4% increase, which is in line with the wage increases. Purchase transportation is assuming a 6% increase. Materials and supplies a 5%. Fuel assumes a 4% increase and takes into account that the IRS CNG rebate expires in 2025. Utilities assume a 6% increase, and other expenses assume a 4% increase. So our multi-budget, oops. I was gonna back up a second. our multi-year budget projects still show budgeted deficits starting in the budget year 2025 and 26. So we continue to rely on the emergency COVID relief funds to close the budget gap, and these funds are expected to be fully expended in fiscal year 24-25. The next slide is showing the subsidized funding to balance our budgets, and as you can see in 23-24, STOA is at flat with 25. We're not projecting increases in STOA. That we want to budget conservatively. But in 25, we are fully expending the American Rescue Plan Act funds. So with that being expended, now we are relying on our conserved preventative maintenance funds and operating assistance that we did not use in prior years due to the federal assistance we were getting from the CARES Act and from ARP. But even with all of these budgeted revenues, we still are seeing the deficits and using our reserves in 25 and 26 is a $14.6 million. What happened?
I think you have to reconnect.
Great. All right. Hang on, technical issues.
That's why this is the first meeting in this room.
You have to go back here.
There's no deficit. Just
Right.
It didn't like that.
Tough to
Shut
me.
down.
Disconnect and reconnect,
Yeah.
you think?
Yeah.
Share screen again.
You know, I
Share
just-
screen again.
I'll just say a couple remarks as they're getting back online here. Once again, the Central Way, conservative budgeting. Okay, we're conservative with our revenues, always. You know, expenses, you know, we can look at those a little bit more aggressively, because if things go the other way, what can happen? We can have more revenues and less expenses, okay? And you don't get in trouble that way. So, the conservative way of budgeting is definitely a good way during some times that we really do not know what's gonna happen that much in the future. Whenever you set, Linda.
Yep, I'm almost there. I'm going on. Okay. So, next we're moving into the capital budget, our capital improvement plan. For 2023-24, we have some anticipated projects. The driver area renovation, backup generator replacement for Auburn and Oswego, GFI mobile ticketing upgrade, an unmanned fuel storage tank top replacement, and a garage dust removal and ceiling painting project. We also have anticipated funding awards for projects like bus signage, bus rapid transit, BRT, computer hardware and software, engineering services, equipment, facility upgrades, fare collection system, service vehicles, support vehicles, fixed route buses, and paratransit buses. So the authority plans to complete the following capital projects this coming fiscal year. The projects listed are highlights of the complete capital improvement plan, which are funded with a mix of federal, state, and local funds. The authority also anticipates securing $21 million in funding for future capital projects. Did you just do it?
It just brought up the 21 million.
Okay, thank you. Next slide. So here is our 5-year capital plan. Over the next 5 years, the authority will invest $135 million in capital improvements to replace capital assets that have reached their useful life, complete facility upgrades, and introduce new service and improve current service. And that completes the presentation. Any questions?
Questions for Linda, Melissa regarding the budget, capital, the future years forecasts, anything? Okay, it was job well, once again, well done, a lot of work went into that.
Yes, I want to thank my finance team led by Melissa Brim, also our manager of our accounting, Len Suits, and our accountants, Kara McDonald and Mike Samiel. They all did a great job working with all of the staff executive team to present this budget.
Very good. Okay.
Oh, and I'm sorry, no, for the capital, Tara, EJ, both compiled the information for the capital plan, in cooperation with our new capital planning committee. So thank you, everyone, for
It really
all
is
your
a
efforts.
Herculean task to keep these numbers straight. They're ever-changing. You know, this document gets created and a week later, numbers change, you know, so they do a fantastic job staying on top of it, making sure that every federal dollar we have available to us, we get, every state dollar that we have available for capital planning. To sit here and say that we've got a capital plan that's funded for 10 years is just unheard of. So that's, it's just great news. You know, we're in solid footing. But, if anybody knows anybody that wants to be a bus operator.
Now's the
There might
time.
be
We're
some
working on it.
retirees in the audience
Yeah.
that might be interested.
Can you send them to our open house on Saturday? That'd be great.
Great. So, with that being said, if there is no questions, and if there ever is questions, you can, always reach out. Linda and Melissa, they're always available, directly. I need a motion to bring this for the board. Julius, second. Tina, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, moving on. Jackie, with the UPSU pension benefit increase.
You'll notice the boards, that seat at the end is left open. That's what we're gonna refer to as the hot seat.
Ooh.
I guess I'm first up.
There you go.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here today to present the Central Oneida Pension Plan increase. Back in 2017, the board approved an indexing mechanism in order to increase the yearly pension amount every year. It was based upon the CPIW, with the caveat that there would be a minimum of 1% increase to a maximum of 3% increase. So therefore, obviously, based on last year's CPIW, it was around a little over 8%. We would be looking at a 3% increase for the Oneida Central Pension Plan. This would amount to a benefit of $72.85 per year of service. So I just need a motion from the board.
That was put in place about 6 years ago. Really takes some of the pressure off of a lot of individuals, and it's really important for the people that are receiving that benefit. Great, so we have Tina made a motion, second, Darlene. Any discussion on this? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
Okay. Resolutions. Caitlin's gonna come up and talk about our driver's room renovations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good
Do you have
morning,
an arch-
everyone.
do you have like an architect or decorating degree? Because I know that you kind of bring a lot of these things
Oh, we had a
forward.
full-on team. This was not
All
just.
right.
Yeah, these are the photos that we presented to you at the last meeting, showing you what the current driver's room looks like and what the renderings are. Now we're gonna ask you to spend the money.
That's resolution 4A. It's resolution.
Yeah, so this project is being funded by grant funds. It's an 80-10-10 split between federal, state, and local funds. So this invitation to bid was publicly let on February 2nd. We sent out 152 bid packages, 84 of which were sent to minority and women-owned business enterprises, and 9 additional bid packages were requested. On March 3rd, we received 4 bids, with the lowest responsible bidder being J. Priori Construction. They offered a price of $307,000. So we are asking for contract award to J. Priori Construction.
Right, and remember, once again, 80% federal, 10% state, 10% local. But really, I think we all know this here, the operators and the individuals need that room. There needs to be more friendly, more relaxing, a better environment for them, so they can deal with the stress of the job. So I think it's a privilege that we take care of this.
The 10% local match is the board members coming in and painting at the end, so.
Right.
You guys be
I'm
prepared.
in.
If you're tall, you do the high parts. If you're short, you do the low.
We'll provide you overalls, you'll be all set.
Monty's gonna take my shift.
So I need a motion to award contract to J. Priori Construction in the amount of $307,000. May I have a motion? Luella, second. Robert. Any discussion?
Start date?
What's that?
Start date?
We will determine that once we have a kickoff meeting.
Okay.
Good question. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Caitlin. Moving on to, Tara's gonna talk to us about authorization for New York State grant agreement. And that's resolution number.
Thanks for getting the door, Steve.
Resolution 4B, Tara.
Didn't know we put a doorbell in the new
Good
room.
morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. As he just said, this is a resolution for a New York State grant agreement. It is attachment number 6 with New York State Department of Transportation. It is in the amount of $4,396 and, $579. So what this agreement is for is a 10%, as you just heard, 80-10-10 splits. This is going to fund 10% of an up-and-coming GFI project or the FAIR project. And it is also going to fund the 10% of our 2022 federal grant agreement.
Okay. Any questions on somebody signing to get 4-point-something million? I didn't think so. Okay. I need a motion to move this. Monty?
You're
I
done.
knew you were hot on it. Second, Tony, I knew you were hot on it. I just wish you had that in the school district. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I will need you, Mr. Chairman, and Brian, and Carol at the end of the meeting to sign the agreements. I brought a blue pen. You can only sign in blue, so everybody knows.
Always
and-
sign a document to take in money, that's great.
Sound like my controller
Thank
with the
you.
blue pen. Okay. Okay, Linda, anything else?
Yes, there are a couple more items, Christopher is going to speak about.
Yeah, so, Chris is gonna get into some numbers here he's passing out. As you're aware, over the last couple of years, we introduced a plan to go with mobile ticketing. Our fare boxes were a little bit older, so what that entailed was adding on what's called a validator, and it was really about the size of a football or so hanging off of the fare box. We have had, we bring you our successes, we're gonna bring you our areas that we haven't been so successful. So over the last 2 years, we have done tons of testing, trying to get this to work, and trying to get this validator to communicate with the fare box, communicate with our data systems, and it hasn't worked. So we went back to the manufacturer, worked with them, and quite honestly, we've had a great relationship with them over the years, GenFair, and we've come up with a proposal to where they're going to credit us back for the full cost that we had in the validator. They're going to give us credits for the labor that we had involved on the Centro side. They're coming up with some management credits, and again, Chris just passed these out, he's going to get into it more detail. But ultimately, what's going to happen is we're going to completely pull out the fare boxes that are there and bring in an all-in-one new fare box that has mobile ticketing and some other benefits. And Chris, you can speak to that.
Sure, thanks, Brian. So as Brian said, we've been working on this for a number of years and have been unsuccessful to get that unit to work. So the proposal I put in front of you is, we've spent significant time going back and forth with the manufacturer. But we want to highlight the numbers for you so we can continue with the process. We'll bring you a formal resolution in April, but we're in conjunction with working with the manufacturer. We wanted to bring this to your attention today. So looking at the top half, the new investment, that is the actual investment, or the investments for the new fare box. So the 215 fare boxes at $3.9 million. The training fare box and simulator at $37,000 is what Steve in our revenue collections office will use to train operators and then test any upgrades, things we're doing as technology or passes may change. It also requires us to do some vaulting and data system updates, which would require us to purchase new parts for our vaulting system, which is an all-encompassing fare box system that actually, when they empty the fare box, no human touches the cash. It goes into a vault system, it's secure, and through the process, it actually dumps the cash directly into the vault that's only handled by our revenue collection staff. So because of the new fare boxes, we do have to do some upgrades there for both virtual and the vaulting side. We also have a $92,000 project support engineering, which is them coming on site to do the measurements, building the cabling and the wiring. And also the installation. In the past, it may seem like we could have done this, but at 215 fare boxes and buses, their expert install technicians are probably the way to go. And then some additional parts, which is an estimate based on spare parts, things, motherboards, lids, screens that may go down. They're projecting some inventory on that, but that's up to discussion. And then the GL implementation was actually called GenFair Link and Mobile Link. They're giving us the first year and the implementation of that software, so that requires options for our service development team to track any data that's entered into the fare box, as well as our revenue collection staff to draw reports on actual money that should be in the fare box revenue that then goes through accounting for the budget. So the overall cost of the project was $4.8 million. What we had negotiated and worked with were the credits and contributions, and this is what Brian was talking about when we started with the Open Link Validator credit. That is the unit that we attach to the fare box, so they're giving us a full 100% refund and credit on that project or that equipment, plus any parts inventory. So as above, there's a parts inventory. We have parts that are dedicated to the existing fare box that's on the bus, so we worked with them to buy back the current inventory. The additional validator expense are the expenses we incurred as far as parts costs that GFI has billed us previous to get the validator up and running. The central labor reimbursement, so we've had quite a bit of time from our actual staff, from IT to revenue collections to maintenance, working with GFI here, trying to get this up and running. And because it was unsuccessful, they were able to capture that time and then receive a credit on it. The Odyssey fare box, that is the current fare box we have that they're going to take back, so the salvage credit on that is $722,000. And then GenFair management investment, that is GenFair recognizing the support that Centro gave them and trying to get this OLV validator up and running. Being that it was unsuccessful, they're also adding an additional credit to the final project to show good faith that they want us to continue with this and they understand what we've done to get there. So the total saving, or the credits back, of $1.5 million for a project budget of $3.291926. And then on the bottom is a software subscription fee, which will be included in this. Typically, we go to a software subscription for 3 years. As I talked about above, they're giving us 1 year free as another good faith effort. And then year 2 and 3 would start the software agreement. So the overall budget or resolution cost for the project next month will be $3.5 million. Any questions?
Who's the manufacturer?
The manufacturer is GenFair,
GenFair.
or what we refer to as GFI. We've had a relationship with them for over 25 years.
This has not been an easy negotiation, and I'm very happy that management captured the central labor reimbursement for that extra time, effort, and aggravation. So I thought it was good what you guys did as far as getting as much credit. I mean, because I don't know what they're going to do with these parts, but good luck.
So are these going into you taking them out of the old buses that you have now, and then you're gonna put them into the new buses that you have coming, or how's it gonna work?
So the target for this transition is going to be what the go-ahead to start purchasing and building the fare boxes for a delivery here to Syracuse in the end of June, for an installation the first 2 weeks of July, to go live August 1. That's a target. That's we actually gave them the original target of August 1st of 2020 for the validator. That didn't happen, so we're hopeful that we can meet the August 1st. That's part of their dedication with this. They're assigning resources to make this happen, and we can have it up and running for the fair to really get it out there for customers, and hopefully in the coming years be able to utilize this for our special services and contracts. But we will install in the current fleet, and then in 2024, September, when the new 82 buses arrive on property, the maintenance team, fare box crew we have dedicated, will swap those fare boxes.
Yeah, I want to thank Jeff Hoff's team. They've put, I can't even tell you how many hours into trying to get the validator to work. Linda's team with in revenue collection and doing the validating and testing and then testing upon testing. And then I also Carlos did tons of work on this. And we just finally realized that, you know, we just can't get the two devices to meld together. So we worked well. You know, we got a great partnership with GFI. As Chris mentioned, I would thank Chris. He's done tons of emails back and forth. We had meetings in Albany. He had a meeting down in Washington. To come to this, so we could bring you this. We will bring you a formal resolution next month, but we wanted to at least present it, to get buy-in, see if there's any objection. That way we can at least tell them, yeah, go ahead, our board is supportive.
Is it wise to make this live just before the fair? I just don't see that as being super because
it's a twofold, yes and no, but if we can get it live for August 1st and it's functioning, you
It's
know,
great.
from an operations perspective, but we will still, so we currently sell tickets at the
Yeah.
Park and Ride locations. We are still gonna continue to do that, at least for this year, no matter if this is live or not. But we're trying to get it up because after the fair, we run right into the city school district service starting, and then SU service for special events. So it becomes a busier time if we wait till after September 1. So we're trying to see if we can do this in the summer to at least get training for drivers, get some adequate testing from the various departments involved in the reporting and the recording systems. So
I could seriously see.
it's
and you know, we're hopeful, and actually, we really think it's gonna be doable, because we're not trying to meld two different pieces of technology like we were before. You know, this is taking that out, putting a brand new fare box in the bus that's gonna communicate with, that already has the capability to communicate with the software that we have, so.
It's a good testing ground, actually.
Yeah,
Fair,
and this current, we were kind of guinea pig, not necessarily guinea pigs, but first agencies to get into the validator equipment.
That's a guinea
Where-
pig.
Yeah, and there was a couple others, but I don't know if I want to say we were the guinea pigs or there was a couple of us at the same time. But this fare box that we're going to is the latest and greatest, and there's tens of thousands of them in circulation right now. So at least we know the technology is tested and proven. I will add one caveat, Tina, for you. The validator itself, we're gonna see if we can implement it to the call of us to give a mobile option. Part of the concern was because the Odyssey fare box is older technology, and as we know with technology today, within 3 years it's outdated. So what they were trying to do is take new platform technology and communicate it to old technology, and that's
Never works.
every time we fixed one program, it kicked something else out. So it was just a constant finding, and so we're looking at it. They're giving us 40 validators pretty much free of charge, up to 237 to test on our call bus units. So it'll provide a mobile ticketing option on the call bus
People
fleet
will
going
be
forward.
happy.
So that is part of this project, but once we get the main fixed route, and then we can
Yeah.
circle back on this technology, you'll see that probably come back to the call bus units.
Okay, great.
Any
Thank
other
you all.
questions? Any other questions? Okay, that's just an FYI, right?
Well, it's an FYI, and so we will now proceed with telling Jennifer that, you know, the board is supportive. So speak now or forever hold your peace. We do want them to get this into production, to get it delivered, so that we aren't losing another month before we can bring you a formal resolution.
Okay. So
Caitlin didn't hear anything I just said.
So I wanna just have one more motion to approve. I want to bring forward a 3.5% COLA increase for all non-represented salaried employees effective 4/1/23. We're trying to combat the CPIW inflation rate of 6.5%. Represented individuals over the last 3 years have received about 11%. Non-represented with this increase would be about 9%. And with the cost of inflation, with the bargaining units up to date, I want to bring this motion forward. Do I have a motion? Llewellyn. Do I have a second? Robert. Is there any discussion? Okay. We appreciate the work that everybody does that is not represented in.
On behalf of the staff, thank you very much for the cost of living increase.
Okay, with that being said, all in favor? Aye. Okay, very good. Linda?
The only last thing I have is we won't be bringing any financials next month to the board as we are busy closing our books for the fiscal year. Accounting and procurement are going to be preparing for our annual audit. And that concludes my report.
Yeah, next week, okay, next month we'll start at 9:30, so, but I'll bring that up at the meeting. Okay, anything? No, okay, Melissa, anything from you?
Nope, we're all set, thank you.
Not used to seeing usually a father and daughter on both sides of the table.
But it's just like a 2-second break, just to switch the video, and then we'll get right into the board meeting.
Got it. Okay, let's take 5. we set back? Oh. Okay, we all set? Yep. Okay. Okay, folks, we're gonna start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I want Attorney Barry Shulman to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done, Mr. Schulman.
Thank you for the honor.
It is an honor.
I feel honored. I said thank you for the honor. It is an honor.
Okay, we do have a quorum present. I just want to take a second here to just go around the room, a few people, to acknowledge, we have some longtime service employees here, but I'd like the board to go around, the board members right now, and just say who you are and what the government that was appointing you to the seat. Darlene.
Darlene Lattimore, and what was the?
From Cayuga.
Oh, from Cayuga County.
Yeah.
Tina Fitzgerald, Onondaga County.
Julius Lyon, appointed by the City of Syracuse.
Anthony Davis, City of Syracuse.
Bob Suslich, Onondaga County.
Frank Saya, representing ATU.
Joe Hardick from Onondaga County.
Luella Williams, Onondaga County.
Monty Flynn from Oswego County.
Okay, and I just want to acknowledge the other few people in the audience here. My colleagues and my good friends, John Rennick, who is the Vice President of Operations. Also want to acknowledge Steve Scher, who is the Vice President of Finance. I want to acknowledge Frank Kovalitsky, who is the CEO here at the authority, and also Rick Lee, who is another CEO at the authority. So I just wanted some of the new and the old just to see, because I bring up some of the names sometimes in some very awkward or nice times about some of the old memories, good and bad. No. So anyway, thank you. So with that being said, our next meeting date is April 28th. We're going to start out with the pension committee meeting at 9:30. It's going to be pushed back a half hour, and I'll tell you why in a second. Audit and Finance Committee at 10. The regular board meeting at 10:30. Our annual board meeting will be also that time. I will be reviewing the committee list, and I will be reaching out to a few people, and I know Luella, I'll be talking to Luella too, who will take the lead on the nominating for the slate. And did you just want to mention the RPM?
Yeah, one of the reasons for the time change next month, as we did with the holiday party, we want to start a little bit later so that it runs into or near the start time of our quarterly RPM, which is the award presentation we do for the employees. We do that on a quarterly basis. We typically do it on the Thursday. We're going to move Onondaga counties to Friday so that you can all be here and participate if you have the time. And really see what it's all about. It's a great gathering. We have a great representation from our labor force. We hand out awards for longevity. We hand out awards for quarterly productivity. And I just want you guys to see, you hear us talk about it on a quarterly basis. Chris does it in his report on the RPM program, so I want you to see what it's all about. So if you have an opportunity and you can schedule that, please stay with us at the end of the meeting next month.
And we do provide refreshments during the event.
Yeah,
so,
we'll be snacks.
You know, so there's things there in case it cuts into your lunch or anything like that.
Okay, with that being said, I need a motion to approve the regular minutes of the February 24th meeting. Tina, second. Monty, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on, our Chief Executive Officer's report, Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do apologize, I did not submit a written report. I was out of the office for a few days last week. I have prepared it. I didn't get it done in time to get it out in the mailing, but I will email it out to you all. As I do report each month where we are on our federal funding, the CARES Act, as I've stated before, and CURSA funds are completely expended. Our ARP funds, we drew down another roughly $2.7 million. So we've expended about $11.7 million of the $38 million available to us. So there's still some federal funding out there that was related to the pandemic. We've had several meetings, as typical in the January, February, March timeframe. We're very focused on budget. So a lot of the report is budgeting meetings we had. Chris and I met virtually with Assemblywoman Hunter's staff, to present our ask. The NIPTA ask was the 20%. And one of the things we wanted to present to our local delegation is how are we going to spend that. So we went over with them that, we're anticipating getting BRT up and running, our on-demand services, and all the other initiatives that we have, and their money will be well spent. So it's not going to just sit there in a bank account. Chairman and I, along with Chris Tuff, met with County Executive Anthony Vicente. We've talked about it. One part of the capital plan, and it is funded, is to build a new facility in Oneida County that's going to service the Utica and Rome. We have a building that we operate out of Utica. It's in a floodplain. For those of you that have been around for a number of years, we had a flood there that was disastrous. We spent $500,000 rehabbing the building, and we want to avoid that, and we want to try to consolidate the Rome and Utica facilities into one operation. So we met with the county executive. He's very helpful. The chairman has a great relationship with Tony Vicente, and that's going to certainly help us as we move forward in this process.
It's been on my bucket list for 18 years, so
hopefully we'll get it done before another 18 years. Another meeting budget-wise with Senator Mannion. John Mannion's very supportive of public transportation, has since he took office. We again met with him to explain how we would use the 20%. Chris brought a presentation on our proposed transition to zero-emission vehicles and how we're going to accomplish that over the coming years. In addition to the monetary ask, one of the things we've been asking our delegates too is to, as the discussion continues on zero emission, that they help us with a reasonable time frame. To just say there and state that by X date everybody has to be electric. We've gotten the delegation and the statewide to stop talking just electric and really change the terminology to zero emission. And in doing so, we've also talked to them about a reasonable time frame, because we do have federally funded vehicles. We can't just take them off the road before their useful life. So that's part of our pitch as well. February 28th, I went with Chris. Linda Beata joined us, and board member Darlene Lattimore went to the Cuba County Legislature. Periodically, some of the legislatures reach out and want to know, because they do contribute to our budget. So we went and presented to them, how much they contribute, what the total operation cost is in the Cuba County operation. They were very appreciative of us being there. They had some questions from the various legislators, and it was a good meeting. It was quick, but it was a good meeting. I met virtually with Senator Schumer's staff. Senator was very instrumental in securing us $3 million towards our BRT. There are other congressional earmarks coming up that we can hopefully ask for, and that was really talking to the Senator's office about future asks. And then, as always, we've had various meetings. One notable one is we have begun a discussion. We had a virtual meeting with some of the Micron executive staff to talk to them. They had some very preliminary discussions on how we would be able to provide public transportation to the new facility they're building out in Clay. We already talked about, Jennifer and I already talked about the asks on the Senate and Assembly side, and we're very hopeful that we're going to get a significant increase in STOA. So any questions I can help you with? Great, thank you all. Next, we're going to go into our executive team reports. Christopher.
Thanks, Brian. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the board. Two things I want to highlight that took place in March. The first of which happened on March 10th. Myself, Lynette Paduano, Casey Brown, and Rachel Bachman, so the marketing team, we attended the Central New York Recreation and Parks Society meeting in Fulton, where Centra was nominated for their Outstanding Corporate Partnership Award for the program that we partnered with City Parks, Onondaga Parks, and Galaxy Radio for the Lights on the Lake program. So we were nominated through the Organization for City and County Parks when we provided the service back in December for 5 weeks to provide transportation for individuals in the city that may not be able to attend Lights on the Lake. So we were honored with the award. I accepted it on behalf of Centro. So if anybody, and I have the pamphlet for the brochure that talks about the various other awards, if anybody wants to take a look at it after the meeting. So I just want to say thank you to everybody in Centro that participated in that. We had several operators and supervisors driving that. The marketing team was there every week to help facilitate the program, provide music. We played music on the bus for the kids as they drove through. We had Casey there taking pictures. I know Brian was there with the mayor on a couple events. So it was great to see that and be recognized for that. That's as a continuation. I talk about challenging the marketing team to get involved in the community outside of just some of the basic events we've done over the years, and this was one that definitely stepped up to put Centra out there. So I thank them for that. The second one, on March 12th to the 15th, Chairman Leno, Bren Dice, and myself attended the APTA Legislative Conference down in Washington, D.C. As Brian alluded to, aside from the conference, we also met with GFI to work on the presentation you just provided in the Audit and Finance Committee meeting. But the conference was very informative, updating us on changes that came from the bipartisan infrastructure law, differences in some of the reporting for NTD and grants. And while we were down there, we also met with Senator Schumer's staff. Continuation of Brian's meeting with Senator Schumer the week before, just thanking him for his support for upstate transportation, the $3 million earmark. And then we also updated him on central projects, future plans, discussed our zero emission transition, and also the application for the Lono grant that we are currently working on. So very informative trip. And Mr. Leno, anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's always been informative, been going down there for a long time, and I think when you meet the key staffer, it's very important that they know who you are and what you're asking about. And we also went over a pretty significant future capital budget numbers, which what was that number again?
$480 million.
Yeah.
If we went to a battery electric bus,
right.
Or $320 million if we went to hydrogen fuel cells.
And we actually got on a little ride up to the Capitol. I know Frank likes to take the train up to the Capitol, but we actually took a electric bus, a small bus, up to the Capitol, to our legislative office building. So it's a little bit different, Frank, but it was interesting. It was is that the future? You think about what is the future, and I still had a lot of questions. Joe, you would have been proud of us about the batteries. How the batteries would be dealing with upstate New York and this frigid air and everything. But it was a very, very informative, and it was good to see a lot of old friends, because this is the first time we've been down since pre-pandemic. So it was good. But the staffer was very engaged with us in Schumer's office. So.
When you think about the enormity of the number Chris just mentioned, $380 million, and that's us to transition our fleet to zero emission. Now take Rochester, Buffalo, Albany, the other large authorities along the thruway, and that doesn't count the downstate numbers and the MTA. This is billions and billions of dollars are going to be spent on this transition, but we're hoping for our 300 something.
Yeah, they talked about the electrical bus, about if, for instance, like in Florida, they had a flood, and all those buses, all those cars and stuff got. Did they talk about that? How are they dealing with that?
Not specifically, not specifically at all.
But it is on our radar,
Right.
especially as we alluded with the Utica facility.
Yeah, 'cause you get a
So
flood.
we know that one of the first things, when they called Joe about the flooding happening, is they shut the power off to the facility. So we know that is a factor if we
Yeah.
transition to a battery electric, where at least with hydrogen fuel cell,
Yeah.
you're still fueling the vehicle and it creates the electricity on the bus.
Yeah.
So
The
those
bus
are
that
some of
we
the
tried
considerations.
was assembled, I think, was it in Europe?
Yeah, in Turkey.
Turkey, yeah. And so what they're trying to do is set up a assembly plant in the United States, of course, because, you know, that would be at a disadvantage, of course. But I still don't, just personally, there's a lot of work that needs to be done
Right.
before we get to that point.
Yeah, we've been very effective in getting our message out that, you know, a true, you know, when you consider electric vehicle isn't gonna work in this climate.
Right.
It's just not. We don't have the charging capacity, they don't have the lifespan of the battery to be out on the road. Not lifespan, but just the time span
range.
to be, the range to be out on the road. You know, flat, dry, perfect weather conditions in California works great.
Yeah.
Upstate New York, snowing, ice, hills.
20 years ago, I never thought I'd be down there going on an electric bus. I just never thought that it was even possible. But anyway, it was successful, and Brent, she did a great job too. And I was proud of both of them, the way they handled themselves professionally in front of the Schumer staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any questions regarding either of them? That concludes my report.
Thanks, Chris. Steve?
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members of the board.
Good morning, sir.
We'll begin this morning with an update on our ridership. In the month of February, it's a good month for us. We had substantial increases year over year in all of our city services. Syracuse was up 31% compared to last February. Keep in mind, last February, we were in the throes of the Omicron wave, really impacted ridership in a negative way. So there was a lot of room for growth within the month of February. You know, core ridership, city core ridership, is about 64% of where it was pre-pandemic. So it continues to creep up a little bit. Our March numbers are early. They look good. We got impacted by a couple of these storms that, as I think I've mentioned before, weather impacts our ridership now like never before. When a snowflake falls, people call in and say I'm working remotely, so we do lose ridership that we didn't see pre-pandemic. So overall, the trend's good. We were about overall of our ridership when you add in the Board of Education and our college services, we were about 70% of where we were pre-pandemic. So it's been pretty stable for months. We're hopeful in the next couple of months we'll continue to increase ridership and things returning back to normal. Obviously, a big part of that is whether or not we can increase services in Syracuse. We're still about 70% of that. That depends on hiring, and we're still in the process of really addressing those human resource issues. As part of your packet, we sent out a copy of a equity analysis that we were required to do for our Syracuse Circular bus service that we began a couple of years ago. This is one of several bus routes that we had to reduce service because of the human resource shortage that we're dealing with. The FTA in particular wanted us to do this route because it was attached to grant funding. If you go through the equity analysis, because of where this service is located in downtown Syracuse, when you do the analysis, it does have a disparate impact on both minority populations and on low-income individuals, but it's really because of where that service is located. When you take in consideration the fact that additional other operating services that we have in this area give people from the same location, services somewhat duplicate but in a different manner. And also that our intent here is, although the FTA, in the FTA's eyes at this point, it's a discontinuance of service, this is something that we're looking to return once we get more manpower. So this is something we're required to do by the FTA. It's not an official discontinuance of this service, but in their eyes, because we've gone more than a year without having this service, we must do an equity analysis. What we're going to also need to do in coming months is do an equity analysis for all the other services that have broken our threshold of major service change. There's about a dozen of those. We'll do that equity analysis and present it to the board probably next month, if not the following, and then we must have a public hearing on all of these service changes. Again, the message to the public is For the most part, these are services we intend on bringing back to the community when we get manpower and availability, but we don't have the ability to do so right now.
Are the service changes only for Onondaga County?
They are. This is all Onondaga County, all the service changes that we did for Onondaga County.
So we would do that similar to we did in the past, have a public hearing like at the On Center or some general place?
Yes, and perhaps virtual.
Okay.
You know, the FDA has really encouraged transit agencies to think outside the box and make it easy for everybody to attend.
Okay.
There may be a combination of virtual and in
Hybrid.
person. Yeah, hybrid.
Good.
Correct. So with this does require a motion to receive by the board for this equity analysis to acknowledge that you have received it.
Okay, we need any questions first? That was very thorough. Okay, we have Julius made a motion. Do I have a second? Tina, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Does anyone have any questions regarding ridership or the equity analysis or service? Okay, with that, I'm going to invite Bren Dice to the table to discuss the status of our special projects. Thank you.
Good job.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Just wanted to give you an update on our Exploring Tomorrow's Transit public outreach initiative. I haven't actually brought these cards to you yet, so I wanted to bring these cards to you. You may have seen them around town. This little scanny thing is our QR code. You scan that with your phone and it goes directly to the survey that we are asking residents and riders to fill out. So I'm going to leave some of these at the table. If you need more, I have more, to share with your folks around your community. But the survey is going well. We have almost 700 responses as of this morning. We have open houses scheduled. And again, those open houses are about drawing folks to the website. So getting more folks to do the survey. The survey is asking both riders and non-riders their opinions about transportation services in Onondaga County. And also, you know, if you're not a rider, what would make you want to ride? What kind of service, what kind of price range, how about on demand? Some questions like that. More frequent, would that make a difference? So we've asked a lot of good questions, and the survey will remain open through this next phase of outreach. And that should be May-ish. So hopefully we'll have all the surveys responses that we, the number of survey responses that we're looking for by May. If not, we'll have some more pop-up events and keep it open a little bit while longer. And then our next phase, again, will kind of be a town hall type meetings where we'll bring the information to the community and say, this is what we've heard you say, now let's get into more details about those topics. And the second thing I wanted to update you about is our bike and scooter share. You've seen the scooters around town again. They're back on the streets. And as you know, we contracted with VIO last year to expand the bike and scooter share service within our service area. We're super excited that we've been working with VIO and working on our first expansion phase. That'll be 2023, where we plan on so right now we know it's in the city of Syracuse, and we know that there are areas in the city that you see the scooters and bikes on the sidewalk, on the road, because that's where the city line is. But those customers it sure looks like they're not stopping their journey there. They just have to get off the bike, right? So we've kind of talked to VIO about an amoeba of sorts to say, let's expand smartly. Let's make sure that those customers that are making those trips can finish those trips. So we've got several conversations happening with municipalities about where we can expand, how we can make those trips be more efficient and more effective on one vehicle. And so those conversations are happening now. We're hoping to have 1,000 vehicles on the road in 2023. So by fall, we'll have all those additional vehicles out there. And again, it's a phased approach. After 2023, we'll look at how we can continue that expansion. But that's all that I've got for you.
So you are gonna be sharing partnership with the, VO, what is it, VO?
Yes.
How are they dealing with the, cause a lot of times you see them all in the streets and everything, how are you gonna be dealing with that?
There is a system that VO has that you have to take a photo of the vehicle when you log out to show that it's parked correctly. It's still a learning curve where folks are learning how to park them legally, but ideally they should be parked between the curb line and the sidewalk is that right of way where they should be parked. If they're not, I think there is a 3 warning system that folks can get warnings for. And in addition, VO has folks out on the roads constantly who are moving vehicles around. If that one's parked illegally, they'll move it to a legal location, or also to a location where folks are gonna take it. If, you know, it's out in an obscure place and it's been sitting for 2 days, they'll move it to a location that it'll get used more.
The reason I asked that question because I had about 5 parked in front of my house at one time. So I don't know how to use them yet, so.
You're gonna have to learn.
Yeah, I am. My daughter's been teaching me a lot of stuff. That I
Part of VO's service is that if a bike or scooter is stationary for a certain number of hours, they are supposed to be sending trucks around to grab them and re-corral them and park them in certain areas of the city.
Mm-hmm.
The downside to that is if somebody parks a vehicle, let's say in front of your house, or a bike or scooter, I mean, and it sits there for 24 hours, and then somebody moves it, but somebody brings a new one and parks it there, it's a new 72 hours starts clicking. So it is a learning curve, and they are, we met with them, they came in here, we met with their staff, and, you know, we think that as we refine this and you know, it becomes a more widely used service, we're gonna be able to hopefully eliminate a lot of that.
But when you say expand the service area, you mean do you mean all of Onondaga County, or?
Not necessarily. We're really trying to make it make sense, right? Some areas of Onondaga County are pretty rural and are not probably gonna be efficient in a bike share program. But that's why in 2023, we're really starting on what makes sense. Where is it that if you cross the city line and a regular person doesn't know you've crossed the city line, right? I mean, we're the ones who think of things in city and municipal boundaries. Most people don't think of that. You go past Thompson Road on Erie Boulevard, and you don't realize you've just left to the city of Syracuse,
And
right?
that's a great point. I mean, that's one of the places you see a lot of these bikes at the intersection of Thompson and Erie, because they get to that point and it stops. So with our expansion into outside of city limits, we can hopefully get them so that now they can travel into the DeWitt area and utilize, you know, some of the services and everything that's along the Erie Boulevard corridor.
So
we're talking with Lemoyne College, we're talking with OCC, so yeah, we're
New York State Fair.
New York State, yeah.
So would this also be in Oswego and Auburn in the future?
It's certainly possible, yes. That's our plan, is to then discuss after 2023's expansion, now where, right? Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
we wrote the initial RFP so that it's our service areas in the 4 counties that we operate in.
I noticed that they have several different kinds of, the one that's scooter, and then they have the one that can pedal and so on.
Yeah.
You'd have a 3-wheeler also, right?
No, I don't know, that's a
I have not seen a 3-wheeler.
We haven't seen
That'd be
it,
good
yeah.
for, so, like some of the senior citizens who may want to try to experiment on it, if you don't have, maybe you do a regular bike.
Take the bus.
Maybe
Take the bus. That's why we're here, baby.
Julia, who's a senior citizen?
I am a senior citizen.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He does take the bus, he gets his reduced fare.
Yes, I do. Right in front of my house, bus run right by.
There you go, perfect.
So if I miss the bus, I can get one of the scooters and.
There you go. Yep. Thanks, Brent.
So, just a reminder, take some of these cards, give them out to your people. Thanks.
At the end of the survey, there is a comment field that when I did my survey, I put in that the board should get a raise. So. Going for you guys.
Coffee. Told you.
It's in that $4 million budget we just,
That's right.
that you can sign today.
That's right.
I was told they were tripling mine.
Mike.
You already got a promotion.
I got a sentence.
I'm off for good.
Well, good morning, everybody. I can
Morning.
start off with some really good news. We hired Carlos, promoted Carlos to cybersecurity administrator about 2 weeks ago.
All
He approached me on Wednesday about some different tasks and so on and so forth. Really good meeting in that process. In his first week here, however, though, he got challenged a little bit. We had an Outlook notification that came out that saying there was a hack that if you just receive an email, they can get your credentials. So he had to go through and start applying patches and so on and so forth. And of course, the patches aren't the same for everybody because of the different things that we had. Some mobile people are a little bit different than people with desktops and so on and so forth. So thank you, Carlos, for your effort in doing that process. On the cybersecurity side, we are putting together a cybersecurity committee that is going to be helping us to mature this whole process, looking at disaster recovery, incident response, and so on and so forth. And so that's going very well at this point. Looking at some of the future projects, we got a continuing refreshing of our desktops. We also got some servers that we're going to be updating just the end side of
Do you have
the-
an
of the
off-site
device.
location for disaster recovery?
We do at the moment. It's actually Utica.
Good. Good, all right.
That's
What's one of the
whole-
Italian restaurants?
Yeah, no, but it's that flood zone area one, so it's.
Oh, the flood zone.
Not much better.
We listed your house.
Okay. Sorry, no comment, anything for the authority.
So that is one of the areas that we'll actually be improving on as well too. So as we're continuing to do the desktop refresh, we're going to do some server upgrades. We're doing a VMware, which is our virtual environment upgrades. Tom's working on that this week. So we've got some more of that to do. We've got some Microsoft licensing processing renewal coming up, so you'll hear from us on that in the next couple months from that process. And they changed their pricing structure a little bit, so got a little bit of education on that yesterday. And then, of course, we're going to be working on maintaining internal control stuff. I'm sure my friend over here will love that. Looking at our file permissions and how those are being depicted, if you will, from that perspective. So it's kind of a busy upcoming year at this point. That's it. That's all I have for now. Any questions?
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Jackie?
Thank you. Good morning again, everyone. I also have some good news. We had 4 trainee operators go full-time today. So they are now full-time operators with Centro, driving the buses out there.
Monty one of them?
No, Monty wasn't. But we can get him in this next training class if
Good
he
enough.
wants.
Good
How's
enough.
that?
Coming tomorrow?
Yeah, yeah. Within the next 2 weeks, we're gonna have 14 more that are gonna
nice.
either go full-time or part-time. Majority of them are looking to go full-time.
Right.
So,
Wow.
yeah, we're off to a really good start. Really looking forward to it. This is a great class. I think that they're gonna be really good operators for us, and be here for a while. As a reminder though, we do have an open house tomorrow from 9 to noon. Myself and most of the executive team will be there along with all of my HR staff. So if you have any time, you can stop down. Tony, you can come down and drive the bus if you want.
No, thank you.
Come on.
No, thank you.
We can have you
You're
guys
asking for 10 of them.
simultaneously driving.
So they drive around and they.
Yep, we're gonna be right in the J lot,
Yes,
across the street, like we did it last time. We'll have 2 buses available, and you can get on. Chris Tuff, is going to be helping again. He's offered his services. So, you know, as long as you have a valid New York State license, you can get behind the wheel.
Look at Julius shaking his head.
You don't wanna try it out, Julius?
I don't think so.
No? All right.
I mean, you'll do the scooter, but you won't drive a bus.
I think the bus is easier.
You're just looking for a 3-wheeler.
Yeah, right.
Got more wheels than that.
hoping that we have another significant turnout like we did in January. As a reminder, we had like 80 individuals come through our door that time. We're hoping that, you know, we have just as much, if not more. Marketing has done a great job, you know, promoting it and everything. So hopefully we'll get a good turnout, and this next class that starts in April, we're hoping to have another 20 to 15.
Jackie, out of the 80 that came, how many applied and joined the class?
I would say 14.
Well, we started with 20.
We did have 20, but we had 6 already hired, you know, before that
Okay.
orientation.
Yeah. Part of the reason we do that is, you know, just so everyone's aware, I mean, we're not just taking anybody that comes in. So we had 80 people come through.
Oh, yeah, you
There is
gotta
an
weed.
interview process, there's background checks, there's,
Right.
everyone goes through, you know, a pretty rigorous process before they get to the point where Jackie was just talking about. Then you've got, you know, 8 to 10 weeks of training before they get to what we call, you know, turning in. And that's what the 4 that she was just talking about, with another potential 14 coming out of that.
And we have to make sure, I mean, a lot of these people that are coming in are not CDL, and they don't have their permit yet. So we tell them what they need to do in order to get their permit. Once they get their permit, then we start the process with them.
Yeah.
What is CDL?
Commercial driver's license.
Commercial driver's license.
Barry, you had to get me, huh?
It's been so long.
long.
I sat here quietly for all this time.
How many drivers are we down now?
With this new class that will be turning in 2 weeks, what do you say, 30, 40? 40.
And keep in mind too, that 40 is to get us back to
Right.
our
Regular.
regular budgeted, normal service. And we're talking all these additional programs we wanna do with BRT and on-demand. We're gonna need even more, so we're not gonna stop. We're gonna continue to advertise, to do open houses, do whatever we can do to bring in, you know, some new employees.
So starting rate for operators?
Starting rate for operators is, well, in trainee, it's like $20.60. And then when they turn in, it goes to $23.60.
$23.60 today.
It's a $3 bump, yeah.
Wait, how long does it take to go from 20 to 23?
About 8 weeks.
That's your training period.
Yeah. And it also depends, Nick, like the 4 that turned in today, they had their CDLs coming in the door, so we were able to kind of train them a little bit faster and get them on board.
So they started probational period? Is that right?
Correct.
Today?
Yep, 6 months.
Good.
Any other questions?
Very good. Thanks, Jack.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you.
Jack.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Jeffrey?
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the board. I wanted to bring to you, we had the DEC, which is the Department of Environmental Conservation.
Look at that, he's getting in front of Barry.
They came in to do an inspection on our petroleum tanks, which are our tanks that hold diesel, gasoline, and oil. They come in to do this every year to ensure that we're following the state and federal rules and regulations. It comes to find out we were in violation. There is a triannual inspection that's supposed to be done to check the sump pumps and the spill containments for tightness. Apparently we didn't know about it. We checked with CNS, our engineers. They didn't know about it either, so we now got it implemented. Auburn and Oswego are getting their tested this week. Utica's already got theirs done, and here, like Lynn had mentioned, we have our tank top repairs getting done. It's going to be starting in April. And after that, we'll have them do the inspections, and we're all about to complete. In addition to that, we have added this to our MC as a new PM to inspect every 3 years, so we're all good there. And now, in regards to anything that ever happens, a spill, whether it be in an accident, a bus leaks something, or something leaks somewhere, we're very concerned about this, and we always get ahead of it. We contact the DEC, we let them know, we report it. Most of the time they come out, they look at it, they make sure that we're doing the right thing. We get a contractor to come out, clean it up, and we send the report back to DEC and close out the reports. That's all I have. Any questions?
Very good, John.
Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then one last piece, Mr. Chairman, and the board handed out to you today was an article that was done on one of our bus operators, Albert Anderson. If you've had the opportunity to meet Albert, he is what we would say is a true Centro ambassador. This guy loves what he does, and it comes across in every conversation he has, the way he drives the bus. He came to our last open house, stood there, talked to prospective bus operators, showed them the bus that we had parked out front. Our recruiting bus actually has his face on the side of it. We marched, we used that bus in the St. Patrick's Day Parade. We had a great turnout of staff walking alongside the bus, and Albert was driving the bus that had his picture on it. And if you could have heard the crowd as he's driving along and they're looking in the bus window and they notice that it's his face on the bus and he's hitting that horn and honking it like crazy, the crowd was going crazy. They were going nuts. I mean, he's a true Centro rock star. So we wanted to hand out that article so that you have that. It's a great complimentary piece on him. And if you, like I said, if you've ever had the opportunity to meet Albert, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I am done with my report.
Great, thank you. Trying to remember your name. Is it Kowalski Lee? Oh, Schultz, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Now we'll go to operations report.
I'm in good company.
Now we'll go to operations report. John Arenik, I'm sorry, I meant Joe DeGray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For many years, we have had a partnership and a contract arrangement with Peace Incorporated to provide bus operators for our paratransit. It's been a great partnership. It has allowed us to maintain our service levels for our customers for many years. Unfortunately, they have made the decision to discontinue that partnership. It will be effective in May. At this time, it has no effect on our current service levels that we're providing. However, we are looking at options on how to maintain that and service level going forward. So as we finalize those decisions, we'll bring you an update to the board to let you know how we're going to.
Joe, can you keep me on the loop on that? Because people are hearing, and I'm getting the freaked out phone calls.
Okay.
And I'm telling them, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
We're gonna have rides. If I have to go recruit people from somewhere to drive our column bus.
Yeah, we're looking at a variety of options, and we have some thoughts and ideas that we're working on now. So we'll have something shortly, and we'll update the board as soon as we get it.
Did they say the reason why they had to terminate the contract?
They did not specifically say, but I do know there's been a change of leadership in some of their board, and for whatever reason, they've decided to go in a different direction. But they did not give us a specific reason as to why. And that's all I have this month.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Okay, now to Finance Committee report. All this was discussed in detail prior to the meeting. The first was a motion to approve February 28, 23 statement of revenues and expenditures, which showed us we were in very good fiscal shape. Motion was made to bring it to the full board for approval. May I have a motion? Llewellyn, second. Tina, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Another motion with the 23-24 financial operating capital budget and financial plans by Linda and Melissa, along with a lot of support from their entire team. The budget outlined where we currently are, but I also liked where we projected ourselves out some years. And I thought that kind of shows a little relief, I think, to the board of where we're going, and we know we have a firm handle on this. Once again, conservative budget, very strong reserves, all about reserves, and it looks to be, at this point in time, we're in, once again, a very solid place. With that being said, a motion was made to bring it to the full board for approval. May I have a motion, please? Robert, second. Monty, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Also, Jackie brought forward the UP-SEU Pension Benefit Fund Increase Index of 3%. That was something that we discussed in 17, a range. With that being said, management brought forward to increase that 3%. Motion was made to bring it to the full board for approval. May I have a motion, please? Tina, second. Tony, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Also, keeping up with that awful inflation right now at around 6.5%. A 3.5% COLA increase for all non-represented salary members will come in effect 4/1/23. A motion was made to bring it to the full board to be adopted. At this point, can I have a motion? Tina, second was Tony. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Also, resolutions, Caitlin and her team, I think, did a good job with the driver's room renovations. That's 4A, resolution 4A, to award contract of $309,000. Am I right? I think I am. 300, thank you. $307,000 to J. Peori. Motion was made to award contract. Can I have a motion? Tina, second. Robert, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Looking forward to that project. Frank, you looking forward to that project? Okay. And also, Tara brought forward the New York State grant agreement for authorization for our CEO to sign and approve to receive funds. Motion was made, brought forward. Tina made the motion, second. Monty, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Let's see, that includes our fiscal agenda then. Old business.
None, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lawrence has a question.
We discussed about the substance abuse down at the club and everything. One of the things I spoke to some of the people who are doing the cleanup down there. How are we dealing with disposal of those needles and stuff like that?
Yeah, Jeff, do you have an update for us on the metal sharps containers that we were getting?
They're actually in every location now.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
How are we disposing of those?
How do we dispose of it? We actually, it's in a container. Once it's dropped in there, you seal the top and you mail it back to a company and they dispose of it.
The reason I say that because I know a lot of the maintenance people who clean up stuff. I just tell them to be typically careful about they handle those needles because you get stuff in them.
Yep.
So, I ride the bus and I should have talked to the
We've got a more secure one that you can't go into. It goes into a tube, so you can't really try to fish them out and reuse them. So it's safer for everybody when they're using it. Now, when it comes to like what you're talking about, you know, when you clean it up, you gotta be very careful. You should put gloves on.
Any other questions for the board? There was no old business or new business for the agenda. We are going to conclude, and when Carlos lets us know we're done, I would ask that everybody just stay seated for a minute.